Welcome back to the Cossy Arsenal channel. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to a brand new video. The Eberechi as a deal to Arsenal is progressing very quickly. Arsenal are now in advanced negotiations to sign the player. We have approached Crystal Palace. Talks are ongoing, not to understand the conditions of the deal. That is already done. Arsenal are now trying to finalize the deal with Crystal Palace, with Arsenal trying to pay a little less under £68 million, which is the release clause of the player. We're going to be discussing that story. We shall be discussing David Ornstein, Fabrizio. What are they saying on this story? Is it true that Arsenal could sign 4 forwards this summer with Eberechi Eze, Noni Madueke, Rodrigo, and potentially Benjamin Sesko or Victor Gyökeres? And what does this mean for the future of Fabio Vieira? All that coming up in this video. But I want your honest thoughts on Eberechi Eze and Fabio Vieira. Obviously, Arsenal could spend about 60 million on Eberechi Eze, but we've got a number 10 in Fabio Vieira. We already have a number 10 that could come in, create chances, maybe score goals, and all this kind of stuff, right? Do you think that Fabio Vieira should be given another chance at Arsenal as number 10? Or it is a very crucial season, it is too crucial for us to try our luck again on Fabio Vieira? I want your thoughts, I want your opinions. And again, why do you think Fabio Vieira didn't work out as a signing at Arsenal? Is it the physicality of the player? Is it that Mikel Arteta didn't trust him, didn't give him enough time? Because there were times when he was given a chance and he actually delivered, and then Mikel Arteta just disappeared the guy. He just made him disappear. So what do you think about Fabio Vieira? What do you think about Eberechi Eze? Let me know in the comment box below. But deals are advancing and Arsenal are making progress in July. So let's start off with that big story yesterday coming in from Fabrizio Romano, and he confirmed right there and then that talks for Arsenal with Eberechi Eze are concrete. Eze is excited, very excited about the prospect of playing for Arsenal. Now, Arsenal have started talks with Crystal Palace about the conditions of the deal with Crystal Palace and the players signed. So Arsenal are in talks with Crystal Palace. Now, this is an upgrade from what Fabrizio said one day ago. Because one day ago, on Saturday, Arsenal were in talks with Eberechi Eze's representatives, and Fabrizio came out and said what was going on is Arsenal trying to understand all the conditions on this deal. They were trying to understand all the conditions of the release clause, all the conditions of the salary and the package of the player. What does the player want? How much is he earning? What do they really want to earn? What is the length of the contract? They were trying to understand everything. But he said on Saturday, by Sunday, there were no direct negotiations between Crystal Palace and Arsenal. Now, Fabrizio is reporting that now Arsenal have advanced to the stage where we are now talking to Crystal Palace to understand every condition of this deal and progress to finalize it. And if you don't believe Fabrizio, this is what the Ghana blog has had to say. Arsenal are exploring a deal to add a versatile attacking player such as Noni Madueke, Eberechi Eze, or Morgan Rogers. Arsenal are being kept informed on a number of players to afford them flexibility in their planning. Okay? And David Ornstein, who works closely with the Ghana blog at The Athletic, has just confirmed right there, as you can see on your screen. Just a moment. He says, Arsenal put Eberechi Eze high among the options to bolster their attack. No contact with Crystal Palace yet. Now, this was before Fabrizio Romano, right? And it says, no contact with Crystal Palace yet. It is unclear if it needs an exit, but serious candidate in Arsenal's list. Separate to a striker and winger targets, Arsenal would look to pay below the release clause of the player. So, what we are having here is Fabrizio, David Ornstein, and James McNicholas, popularly known in the Arsenal spaces as the Ghana blog, all reporting for the biggest outlets you can ever trust on transfers, The Athletic, and of course Fabrizio reporting for Fabrizio YouTube and his own brand, right? They're all confirming that Eberechi Eze's deal is progressing, and what is very clear here is that the deal is separate from any other deal. It is separate from the Noni Madueke deal, and we are being told that the Noni Madueke deal is primarily seen at Arsenal as a deal that would be done to provide Saka with cover, right? Remember when Saka picked up that injury, Arsenal struggled a lot. And you cannot rely on Martinelli to cover up for Saka. You cannot rely on Rodrigo, because if you signed Rodrigo and you played him on the right hand side of the attack, that is the exact reason why he's leaving Real Madrid. So it means that if Arsenal sign Rodrigo, who doesn't want to play on the right hand side, it means you've got to go and find a player that can back up Saka. And Noni Madueke is that player. Arsenal have made a bid, according to Sky Sports German. I will let you know about that story later on. So Eze is an easier deal because it doesn't depend on any of the others. It doesn't depend on what Arsenal are doing with the striker deal. It doesn't depend on what Arsenal are doing with the left winger deal. And it doesn't depend on what Arsenal are doing with the right winger deal. Yes, Arsenal are looking at Eze as one of the players that can bolster the attack, but it is independent of all the other deals. Okay, and what is important here is that after understanding all the information, after getting all the information on the release clause, on the salary, on how to trigger the release clause, Arsenal have moved on to talk to Crystal Palace. Right now, it's yet to be seen and to be understood whether Crystal Palace are going to sanction a sell, and if they cannot sanction a sell, if they don't want to sanction a sell, then there is a bigger possibility that this still happens by triggering the release clause, right? But as the saying, we don't want to trigger the release clause, we want to pay a little bit under that. And we're going to talk about, can Arsenal really sign Eberechi Eze under the release clause? Is it possible? In my opinion, it is actually possible. But going back to Fabrizio, he says that the player is very excited. Right? You can see it there, right? He says Eze is very excited by the Arsenal project, and Arsenal are in talks with Crystal Palace. It is going to be very difficult for Crystal Palace to block this move. I am not trying to be a messiah. I'm trying to be an Arsenal fan, but I'm also trying to be a football fan who has done a podcast on transfers for the last 5 years. It is very difficult for you to stop a player who wants to go to a particular club, right? Remember Dusan Vlahovic? Like, Arsenal were really interested and were willing to pay big money, and he wanted Juve. Where is he now? At Juventus. Remember Cesc Fabregas? When Arsenal tried to stop him from going, where did he go? Barcelona. It is very difficult, right, for a club to stop a player like Eberechi Eze. And Crystal Palace have got a problem here, right? First and foremost, this is Arsenal's most serious month. July is the month where Arsenal are going to do more deals than any other month. And Eze is one of the attacking options Arsenal are considering, and they're saying, we've got to bolster our attack. We are going to do whatever it takes to give Mikel Arteta attacking options. Remember, in the last 5 years, Arsenal have been trying to sign some attacking options, but we have not really invested a lot of time and a lot of money on the attacking front. Yes, you can talk about Kai Havertz, but did we sign him as a 9? Did we sign him as a forward? No, we signed him as a midfielder. So the attackers Arsenal have signed in recent months or years have been Gabriel Jesus from Manchester City. Remind me of the other. Trossard on the left wing as well, and Raheem Sterling on loan. And that is not good enough for a team that's trying to compete with Liverpool and compete with Manchester City with the amount of budgets they're spending on their attack. So as they're saying, we will do whatever it takes to get these deals done and bolster our attack. Now, is it possible for us to get this deal done under 68 million euros, which is the release clause of the player? What I can say that it's not going to be easy, but it is possible. And the reason as why I'm saying it's not going to be easy, but it's possible, is this. Crystal Palace are now trying to argue their case to be allowed to play in the Europa League, okay? They're going to need their best player. They're going to need to keep their squad intact. So no one will be surprised, unless you've not been following football for a while. No one will be surprised if Palace are like, we don't want to sell our player, okay? by Palace not wanting to sell, it means that negotiations are going to be very, very hard. I saw someone saying that because he's left with 2 years on his deal, that guarantees Arsenal a chance to sign him for less than £68 million. And I'm like, are you crazy? Have you seen this guy's numbers? Have you seen the level at which Eberechi Eze performed in the FA Cup final? Have you seen the level at which he performed last season? Don't be ridiculous. Crystal Palace, if there was enough company on this deal, Crystal Palace could create a bidding war and get about 70 million on Eberechi Eze's deal, right? They could do it. If Tottenham was serious and they were willing to pay 68 million, I bet Arsenal would be able to raise their offer. But Arsenal know the player is crazy about joining us. Arsenal know as well the player is 100% excited to be an Arsenal player. So they can use that against Crystal Palace. They can tell them, yes, the player loves Crystal Palace, and there is no way it has been written that Eze doesn't want to be at Palace, right? But an Arsenal move is a huge opportunity for him that he wouldn't actually turn down. So in my opinion, Arsenal can pay under the release clause of the player if Palace are convinced that Eze really wants to go, and it's going to be on Eberechi Eze. Can he tell them, I really want to go to Arsenal? I don't want to disrespect you as Palace, but this is my dream. I would love to play for this club. I love this club. It's a massive opportunity. And I know that Palace would want a clear pathway for Eberechi Eze. They would love to see him win. They would love to see him go to the next level. Now, what is funny here and what is surprising for me is that all outlets are saying this deal is independent of the left wing deal, which means that Arsenal could still go and do their mambo jumbo and get themselves a left winger, expensive or cheap. Nobody cares because we already have left wing options, right? And the left wing options, the left wing deal depends on at least the departure. This has been said by David Ornstein. This has been said by Fabrizio. This has been said by James McNicholas that a new addition to the left wing might require a departure from one of the two, Trossard or Martinelli. But if Eze was being signed as a left winger, then Arsenal would first try to offload someone. But Arsenal are not trying to offload anyone on left wing. They're trying to actually sign Eze regardless of what's going on the left wing. I mean, we were told by the BBC that Arsenal are one of the most profitable clubs in England in the last 20 years. And if they wanted to splash 200 million this summer, they would do it. They wouldn't have PSR problems and no one would touch them. And that is 200 million without player sales this summer. So I think the left wing deal is going to depend on a departure. Martinelli is wanted at Al Hilal. He's also wanted at Bayern. We understand. So if Martinelli leaves, then Arsenal progress to sign Rodrigo or to sign anyone, maybe Anthony Gordon, maybe anyone. Okay? Eberechi Eze, for the first and last time, clarification has come in, is not being looked at as a left winger. Arsenal are looking at him just as a versatile attacking option that can play anywhere. Mikel Arteta plays him depending on game state and game requirements, and also maybe availability issues. Okay? So this deal is going to happen. Arsenal guys, brace yourselves for impact. And then I wanted us to talk about Fabio Vieira, because my assumption when Arsenal were drawing their transfer guide was that Arsenal were going to sign a left winger, a striker, and maybe two midfielders, right? I thought we would do about 5 to 6 signings, a goalkeeper and a defender. But it looks like Arsenal want to do about 4 incomings. And if Eberechi Eze, who's an attacking midfielder, plays at 10 and 8, is one of those 4 incomings in attack, Fabio Vieira is done at Arsenal. I'm sorry. I don't think we have seen enough of this guy. But I also I'm not convinced that Arsenal need to invest more time on this guy. Like, there are players that I could say, well, Arsenal have not given this guy time. maybe let's give him some time and see what could actually come out of that. It is not Fabio Vieira for me, because I look at the options in attacking midfield that Arsenal are looking at, and I'm like, these guys are so much of upgrades on Fabio Vieira. Take, for instance, Eberechi. Look at his numbers at Crystal Palace in the Premier League. Can Fabio Vieira really give you those numbers? Maybe he can, maybe he can't. Look at Morgan Rogers. 8 goals and 10 assists last season. That is the output, attacking output, Arsenal need in their attacking midfielder, in their number 10. Is Fabio Vieira going to give you that? Maybe yes, maybe no, right? So if Arsenal can find a ready player, one that doesn't need a lot of time to adapt to the Premier League, because Fabio Vieira does, for me, it's time to move on for Fabio Vieira. And in terms of Eberechi, I think he would give Mikel Arteta more options than Vieira. Can play in the number 8, and you're right. Can play alongside Declan Rice, and you're right. He can play alongside Zubimendi in that double pivot, and you're right. He can also play alongside Odegaard as the second attacking 8, and you're all right. Left wing, he can do that. Right wing, he can do that. Number 10, false 9, he can do that, right? So for me, Fabio Vieira, it's time up for Arsenal. I mean, we've not seen enough of him. I'm not going to judge him harshly, but it would be time to go. But if Arsenal did a centre forward, and they signed Eze, and they signed Madueke maybe, and then they signed Rodrigo, what a summer this is going to be. Like, we've been hearing that Arsenal want to win, and that has never been put in action. But this is putting words into action. If Arsenal dare complete Rodrigo, maybe Shesko and Eze, even if we don't get Madueke, that is statement. That is levels. That is Arsenal moving mad in this window, right? So Eberechi Eze is progressing. Little by little, I'll be giving you updates on this one until it gets done as well.